this is Sean. Today I wanted to make a video about Rolex and Tudor and essentially the differences between them and which I prefer and why. This is a sort of collaboration with Time in the UK. The channel very kindly provided me with the footage of his Tudor because we're going to be providing our kind of own opinions on Rolex and Tudor. So check out his channel if you haven't already. So, Rolex was founded in 1905 by Hans Wilsdorf, as you probably know, and Tudor a little while later in 1926, basically to provide a more affordable option for people who didn't want to stretch to a Rolex. He'd already tried a few times, apparently, to set up brands. Until very recently, the gulf in price was the main difference, and the fact that Tudor used third-party movements, so things like ETAs and such like. But that has actually changed a little bit, and Tudor have started to use in-house movements, which levels the playing field maybe a little. This back bay, by the way, looks awesome, and particularly if you've got a slightly larger wrist, I think it looks brilliant. So does Tudor mean you can't afford to buy a Rolex? Does it mean you just like Tudor more? That's always been the kind of stigmatized view on Tudor, the fact that Tudor are a poor man's Rolex. Not necessarily anymore. And I read an article on Bob's Watches, which was interesting, which basically said Tudor is now what Rolex always strove to be, which is a producer of really good tool watches. Because here's the Pelagos on the screen. Maybe Rolex doesn't make that kind of watch anymore. If you're familiar with the Pelagos or Pelagos, it's got so many features that are so awesome that the strap kind of expands with your wrist. Really, really practical. But anyway, first, Tudor have had a resurgence in the last few years, particularly the Black Bay on the right, the foundation of their collection really. You've got the Black Bay Chrono, the Black Bay 36, the Black Bay 58. If anything, they rely overly on the Black Bay in their collection. They've started using in-house movements, and they are approaching the desirability of Rolex really when you consider things like the Black Bay 58 and the GMT, which, like Rolexes, were selling over retail price and were really difficult to get in ADs. You could argue, to be honest, that traditionally Tudor is the more exciting choice. Rolexes are really quite conservative designs that have only moved on in really, really small incremental steps, whereas Tudor are able to make those, more out there design choices, as you can see with models from the 70s. I think it's called the Monte Carlo. More use of color, things like that, which maybe make Tudor the more idiosyncratic choice, if you like. I considered myself the GMT, the Black Bay GMT, and actually the Black Bay Steel and Gold. I'll show you some pictures on the screen of me trying them on, and those are great watches. I mean, they're a great size, they're really well designed, as are these two. The Pelagos on the left, it comes in blue as well, which is a really nice watch. For me, it's too much of a tool watch for everyday wear. Whereas the Black Bay is a little bit more of a you can wear it as an everyday watch, and it is a dive watch, and people love the Black Bay. And again, it's a really well designed watch, and there's something for everybody with the Black Bay as well. It's not just one case size, and there are various colorways, and if you wanted, you could go with the ETA one. I'm not 100% sold on the use of in-house movements in Tudor, to be honest. I completely understand that that's what the market requires nowadays for a luxury watch. It has to be an in-house movement. But I just think that, what does that say about Rolex? Does that say that Rolex is just a brand and that's why you're paying more for Rolex rather than anything more tangible? And maybe that is the case, and maybe I'm wrong about the fact that I prefer Rolex to Tudor. Another thing possibly to consider about Tudor is the long-term value of the watch. I mean, watches for investments, it doesn't work in my opinion, but you do want to be able to flip the watch if that's what you want, if you change your mind or whatever. can you do that as readily with a Tudor? I think, to be honest, you probably can, and the GMT in some instances is still selling above retail, but we'll see. So there's the Pelagos on the wrist. I think it's 42, the Pelagos, but again, really nice looking watch, quite thick, which is a complaint against the Black Bay, but it does look really good. I think it might be slightly too big for me, but it looks good here. So Rolex, in terms of Rolex, why choose Rolex? This is my Rolex Explorer 214270, and I think one very easy, simple reason for choosing Rolex, is, why choose the sequel? Buy the original. Rolexes are the original, arguably the best. Why choose the other? Everything in a Rolex is in-house. So we talk about in-house movements, but Rolex does everything itself. They smelt their own gold. They produce their own steel. They, rather than 316L steel, which is what most watches use, Rolex uses 904L, which apparently takes a polish better, is more hard wearing. It's harder to machine, hence the price differential, or part of the price differential, which is, it's amazing, really. Completely integrated company which produces everything. Everything on a Rolex is absolutely perfect. You may disagree with that, to be honest, and I could disagree with that myself, but just the watches are so well thought out. The designs are so perfect, they're almost boring. The Explorer here, it's virtually identical. Well, identical is probably the wrong word, but the same as when it was released in 1953. Also, on a Rolex, the sizing is better, it's more conservative. Most Rolex models, sports models, are 40mm, whereas Tudors, you're getting into 41, 42, 43 for the Black Bay bronze, my understanding is. Unparalleled history and cachet. Every model has amazing history and prestige. Hans Wilsdorf was a marketing genius. He paired the Explorer with the climb of Everest. He paired the Submariner with diving, and the Daytona with racing. And all these models have got so much history and so much prestige. It's a Rolex at the end of the day. Why choose Rolex? It's a Rolex. Rolex is synonymous with luxury in the luxury watch market. You say, I'm wearing a Rolex, and people know exactly what you mean. To be honest, that could put people off, and I understand why it would. But it makes me feel good to wear a Rolex. It makes me feel like an intangible quality a Rolex has, which some other brands can never keep up with, and Tudor can't. And to be honest, I completely understand why some people wouldn't like that. You might feel like only snobs wear Rolexes, or whatever, but I think it's a good thing about the brand, particularly if you've got a more under the radar piece like the Explorer. Maybe Tudor is the more out there choice, to be honest, and it's too obvious to buy a Rolex. Across history, people have made a bit of money and gone, okay, I'll buy a Rolex. I remember a quote by the ex-French president who said, if you've not got a Rolex by the time you're 40, you're a failure. And that's the way people feel. Some people feel that way, which is obviously ridiculous. But Tudor could be, the more out there, more considered choice, if you like. But I still stick by my choice that Rolex is the best choice, and I prefer Rolex. Tell me what you think. Do you prefer Rolex? Why? Do you prefer Tudor? Again, why? Do you prefer another brand, and do you think these two brands don't deserve consideration? If you like my channel, please subscribe. Every subscription helps. And thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and hope everyone's staying safe. Thanks very much. Bye bye.